There, Miss Wyatt here, and today I'm doing something kind of different. I'm going to do an analysis on um, a few of my characters. Okay, today I'll do one, but it might turn into a series depending on how feedback on the video comes. But today I'm specifically going to do one character who a very a favorite character of mine, and that is Llorien, the Warrior Queen of Iotr. So when I started writing Llorien's character, the first thing I had to think about was what did I want her to be like physically? No, not like dress size and all that. Like when people saw her, what what kind of what kind of impression did they get of her? And for that, I said, and because of that, I decided to go a more Amazonian type of feel with her. Super tall, but not muscly. Um, I wanted to I wanted to be her like a cross of the Queen of England and Wonder Woman. That's kind of the air I wanted Llorien to have. So because of that, the thing I did was I made her super tall. She's about 7 feet, and because of the kind of kingdom she's from, she's like appearance wise she like, mixed between an elf and a pixie. Um, the thing about Asian women is that they have wings, like they're the only in the kingdom who have wings, and that's why when it comes to military stuff, the women are more of an aerial assault type. So she has the wings, but also rides a wyvern and a horse, depending on what she's planning on doing. Uh, she has silver hair. Uh, Again, that one is more to do with her other side. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. Spoilers for stories that a story that is already out. I will leave a link to that in the description if you don't want to get spoils. Thankfully, I have not talked about anything in that story yet, but if you want to go, if you don't want to be spoiled about that, you can always go read it and then come back. But if you're not, then feel free to continue. So she's a part like she's part Iotrian, part silenced. Silence is kind of like the forgotten kingdom. It used to be a very huge kingdom. It used to be like a very prominent kingdom, but then something happened where that made it just collapse. So she's from that kingdom as well, but she's also Iotrian because her father is the Iotrian king. He kind of unquote remarried after his wife and the mother of uh, Llorien's stepsister passed away, and that of course gave her to Llorien. And because of that, she was raised in the Iotrian house, the Iotrian royal, as part of the Iotrian royal family. Um, but because of that, she was able to manipulate different types of magics faster, much easier than what her sister would have been able to, because the Silents have always been known as feared magic users. The amount of magic able to use is very huge. So, but at the time she was in Legends of Iotr, she was only able to use the two that were given access to her by the Iotrian bloodline, which is water, which is blue, and nature, which is green. Um, but the only reason she has access to that is because she doesn't necessarily need to have been acknowledged by a kingmaker. Since she was the second in line behind her sister Eldorain, um, normally what happens in different kingdoms is that the second in line usually has much more potent magic or is able to manipulate magic much easier than say the, the first to the throne. Normally, for the first to the throne to be able to manipulate magic easily, or much easier than what they're already able to do, is that they need the kingmaker. And for her, that's why you'll see she's not able to manipulate the magic that is available to the silenced, which I have not released quite what they're able to manipulate. But just know she's not able to do that. In terms of military presence on the ground, that's not magic. She's able to wield swords, a bow and arrow, and an axe. The reason I went the axe is because, as much as a sword is a very up close and personal, I also wanted to give her something that can't also be used at like range. So that's why I went with the axe. Uh, it's definitely not something you'd expect a like a war like the king or queen like going into battle with to have, because of course you want the king want when you have the king or queen on the battlefield, they would want to be as nimble as possible. They would want to be, you know, able to, just move at ease. So the fact that Llorien is able to move with ease with an axe gives her a much more imposing nature. And on top of that, with being able to use magic, she's often able to infuse her weapons with magic. Um, Sometimes she can use her axe, to create a shockwave around her in the earth. Sometimes she's able to um, you know, freeze the water on her sword and turn it into like an ice sword and freeze her enemies around her. Which so that her ability to to do multiple things with not only her physical weapons but also her magic, I think has always been why a lot of people have feared Iotr and Llorien herself for ages, because they have this such an imposing leader who's not necessarily imposing, because um, Llorien would be the first to tell you she does not like fighting. She'd rather be in her room, leave the fighting to everyone else, but she would never hide behind her army. She would never hide behind her people. She would rather fight with her people than fight behind her people. Like, instead of leading them from the shadows, she'd rather be like, I'm sending you into battle, but I'm not going to put you into something that I wouldn't put myself into. And that is why she's always under respect of her people. Um, on top of that, she's a very gifted um, negotiator, I think is what I would call her. She definitely loves the day-to-day runnings of the kingdom. That's something she'd never delegate. She's always in touch with everything that goes in her kingdom. If some like a price of like bread would go up in her kingdom, best believe she would know she'd want to know why it's gone up. If a soldier in her army has died in training, she would want to know why that is. Even the church, despite the separation of church and state, uh, she is also in touch. Like, she communicates with them quite a bit, to see like what the learnings, what the church needs. They work. She has ears on the ground, and she always wants what's best for her. Think of her as kind of like Emerin from Fire Emblem Awakening, someone who would always know like what the people wanted and would want the best, despite not being able to give that all of that. Um, so on top of that, the other thing I wanted to do with Lloyd is, as I said, I didn't want to make her a typical warrior queen or brouhaha, all fight, able to down like drink anyone in her army. Um, with ease. I didn't want her. But I also didn't want to make her too feminine. I hope that doesn't offend you, but you get what I'm saying. I didn't want her to make like. I didn't want her to be um what's the French lady, what's her name? Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. I didn't want her to be like that, just hiding in the castle, but I also didn't want her to be like picking fights every single day with her army and stuff. So finding that balance, and hopefully like with Legends of Iotr and the next